Um, I am just a regular schmegular student, but I am originally from Maryland, and I moved to Georgia to start law school. But I have since come back to Maryland since nothing is in person anymore.
So true.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. My name is Samuel Hativa. I am originally from Colombia, but if you can tell by my accent or lack thereof, I've been here a long time. For all intents and purposes, I'm from Orlando. I did my undergrad at UCF, so go Knights. And I'm currently about to be a second-year student at the University of Miami School of Law. So, yeah, really excited to be here with everyone.
Nice. Great.
A little bit of a shy crowd here. So I'll ask a question just to get you all of those that are here with us,
Looks like we have
their
a question in
brains
the
is
chat.
okay, well, as I'm talking. All right. When did you know you wanted to go to law school? What steps did you take then to make that dream a reality?
Okay, so I'll jump in here. I beat you. I knew that I wanted to go to law school from the age of 12. So it actually happened like really crazy. I was sitting in the lunch period, and I was like contemplating like my life, like what do I want to do with my life? I don't know. At 12 years old, so a friend of mine actually suggested that I pursue law because she said I had a nice speaking voice. And honestly, that was really the catalyst that started it all. From there, I was really taken aback that someone, thought so highly of me because I didn't think that highly of myself. And, from there, I researched. I went to a pre-law magnet in high school in Palm Beach Lakes, West Palm Beach. And from there, I joined the debate team. I joined the mock trial team. And I excelled at all of those things. So it really fueled this passion for, wanting to become an attorney. And, after college, I worked for a long time, and I worked in management, business sales, retail, and just really developed some of those hard skills and soft skills that would be necessary to thrive in this kind of environment. So, definitely a lot of hard work, a lot of preparation for the LSAT, and really more than anything, perseverance, because, once you decide that you want to, pursue this career, you're going to get a ton of feedback, ranging from positive to, why do you want to be an attorney? There's so many attorneys, so you really just have to stay grounded in knowing, what your reasoning is, what your whys are, and stick to, what your heart is telling you to do.
Yeah, I want to echo everything that Julian said. Just one thing that I'd like to add is that law school doesn't have any prerequisites. So for me, that meant that in undergrad, I could major in whatever I wanted to and whatever was interesting to me. And so that's something to also, I guess, keep in mind, is that you don't have to be pre-law. You don't have to major in like political science or anything. Like you can do something that interests you in undergrad, something completely different, and still end up going to law school. That being said, I did major in government and politics, so.
Yeah, and I also, I had a similar situation as Julian. I knew very early on that law school was something that was a goal that I obviously wanted to obtain eventually. And actually, in high school and often in college, I did theater. So it completely is something that you my advice in hindsight would be, you know, study whatever makes you very, very happy, because Nancy's right, there are no prerequisites. So definitely do something that you're really interested in. And I guess we'll go on to the next one, unless Samuel has anything to say about that. Let's see.
I do actually.
Okay.
Yeah, no, you guys are all correct in the fact that there is no actual like major prerequisite for law school or anything like that. So the beauty of going or wanting to go to law school is that you can study whatever you want. That gives you an advantage. You can study something that you like, something that you enjoy, where the chances are that you're going to do well and get good grades, because grades do matter. The two most important factors for your application are going to be your LSAT score and your grades. Now, that said, and this is where I feel I can provide somewhat of a different perspective. I come from a science background. So when I was at UCF, I studied molecular biology. And for people with a hard science or an engineering background, you're in a unique position in that you can qualify for the patent bar, which is a separate bar that you have to pass if you want to become a patent attorney. So it's a very niche field. It's a field that's very much restricted to people with scientific backgrounds. So I don't know how many of you guys here in the audience have a technical background, but if you do, you can use to your benefit. Like I'm already studying for the patent bar, so I'm gonna try to pass it this summer and kind of move into patent work. So that's one of those areas where if you have somewhat of an idea that that's something you might want to do, then it's very important that you do major in some kind of science or engineering. Otherwise, like everyone else has already stated, you can study whatever you want, study something that you enjoy. It'll make it all much easier to get the grades that you need to get in. So that's kind of what I wanted to add in there.
Awesome. Okay, so going to the next question, and they are asking them now. Let's see, go past here. Okay, so this student had a few questions. Let me just compile them into short snippets, and you all can take the floor. Everyone doesn't have to answer, but whatever you want to answer is fine. Does law school ranking matter? Does a better school with a worse program in your interest area of law look better? How relevant is location for jobs in law school? How important are summer internships? And would you have to move to a bigger city if you attend a more rural university? Any tips for the LSAT? Is law school as competitive as people say it is? Okay, so that was 6 questions. I guess I'll hand out those first 3 again. Does law school ranking matter? Does a better school with the worst program matter more for hiring? And how relevant is location?
Wow. Okay.
I know.
So no, it's okay. This is awesome. So personally, I think, okay, so that's kind of a loaded question, because I think whatever you make of your law school experience is that's how it's going to end up benefiting you, right? So if you care a lot about going to like a top 10 school or university, and you have the LSAT and the GPA to get into it, and you get a phenomenal scholarship, then by all means, you know, go and pursue that dream. And because essentially it might, you know, going to one of those top 10 schools, like it might not matter. You might have a decent alumni network in whatever city you decide to live in, or whatever state you decide to move into practice to. But essentially to me, you know, I think my law school is ranked in the 90s. And to me, I've performed exceptionally well. I've never had a problem getting, you know, a summer internship or a job or anything like that. So I think that it really depends on the person. And if you assert yourself, then the ranking of your law school shouldn't hinder your experience at all. So I
Um,
guess in long story short, no, to me, it didn't matter.
I would definitely like to piggyback off of this response because um, I do go to an unranked university, um, and it is really different from the experience that I had coming from Duke University, because that is a top school or considered a top. But let me just dispel this whole low ranking, high ranking, um, you know, theory or myth or whatever, because as someone that's gone that has experienced, like both sides of the spectrum, I can 100% say that the experiences that I've had at FAMU are, you know, are priceless, and what I've learned at FAMU are priceless. Um, and to my counterpart's point. Uh, I've had several great internships. I have an internship lined up this summer at a corporate security litigations firm. Um, I just, if you're looking for the cookie cutter big law firm, um, 60 to 80 hours a week, I would recommend that you try for the higher tier school. But as far as becoming a great attorney and having a great life, like going to a high ranked school or going to a lower tiered school, that shouldn't put a cap on anything. What you do and your integrity and your work ethic, is going to be what speaks for you, while you're in law school and beyond law school. And I just don't think that you should place so much importance and so much value on the paper where your degree is coming from. As long as you have that bar card at the end of the 3 years and you go out and you do great work will follow you.
Yeah, and if I can add to that, I think it is important to consider location to go to the third question here, because even if you don't know what you specifically want to do after graduation, I think it is important to consider location and opportunities that come from that location. So part of the reason why I chose to go to Emory was because I felt like Atlanta had a lot of different opportunities available. There are a bunch of firms there, and there are also a bunch of courthouses and nonprofits and different companies that are headquartered there. And so I felt like going to school in Atlanta would provide me with a lot of different opportunities location wise. As well as the reason why I chose to go to school in Georgia versus a school in Maryland was because I felt like if I were to go to a school in Maryland, I would be competing against all of the different DC schools. So that's like a lot of competition for a limited amount of jobs. Whereas in Atlanta, you're really only competing against 2 or 3 other law schools for the same number of jobs. And so to me, that made me feel like I had a better chance of getting an internship that I was really interested in and really invested in. And so location is definitely something to consider as well.
Yeah, no,
Awesome.
for sure. And in addition to all these factors that you guys all laid out, another thing that's really important is that it's really what you make of it, regardless of whether you go to a high-ranked school, a low-ranked school, you're top of your class or you're median or whatever. It's really what that you can control as well. And I cannot stress enough the power of networking, getting out there, building relationships with people, getting to know people, getting in front of people. Just to give an example, right? After our first year, or during the second semester of our first year, we start applying for different internships, externships, legal opportunities for the summer. That's something you'll typically do as a law student. Every summer you'll have a legal. I've applied to countless opportunities through the Career Development Office at Miami Law, And I think of all of those, I can't tell you how many have rejected me. A ton of them. I think I've only been offered like one interview and one position that I turned down because it turned out it really wasn't a fit for me. But I'm currently interning with a patent attorney right now, and I'm getting, real world experience, invention summaries, and answer office actions. And this is not something I applied for. I mean, this came through a relationship that I built with a patent attorney last October. I went to a talk that she was giving at one of the events held here in Miami. I made sure to connect with her. I kept in touch with her regularly, followed up with her, asked her any questions, and even amid this pandemic and everything, she just out of nowhere offered me an opportunity to work with her. And I mean, here I am, my first legal internship, and it was really just through networking, building relationships. So I mean, at the end, it's what you make of it and how hard you're willing to hustle and get in front of people and get to know people. Because at the end of the day, it's not just a numbers game. Yeah, you want to have the number, have stellar LSAT scores, by all means, do it. But at the end of the day, it's the people who provide opportunities for you. So, yeah.
And can I just emphasize, just because you have or you are able to achieve great grades and rank in law school doesn't necessarily translate into you being a great attorney. Again, in law school, you're not learning how to practice. You're learning the law. You're learning a new way to think, and the culmination of all of this learning, usually results in a midterm or final exam. You're not in the courtroom, and you're not practicing, and you're not being given real life work to do. Like, you're literally learning how to think. So some students do very well on exams and do very well in law school academically, but don't hit the ground running as an attorney. So I would just like to just make everyone cognizant of the fact that you really want to work on your personal and social skills and networking skills, and just your soft skills, as hard as you work on achieving the great grades. Because again, like, this is an industry that is built on networking and built on relationships and built on being able to communicate and advocate. So you really want to make sure that you are touching on those areas, as well as the academic components of law school.
Very, very cool. Very much appreciate it. I'm going to compile this into one because I've seen this question multiple times in the chat.
Mm-hmm.
Big part of this is the LSAT, which I think many of you touched on. So tips for the LSAT. How much time did you spend studying for the LSAT? And also, is law school as competitive as, excuse me, as people say it is? So I'm going to just put all that into one because I've seen those questions appear more than once.
The LSAT is really just like a whole different beast. I think my biggest tip for the LSAT is just to practice as much as you can. Get a hold of any old tests that you can find. Really just like hammer home doing timed practice exams, because if you go easy on yourself and you take 5 extra minutes, 10 extra minutes, those are points that you're losing during the actual exam. And I think that for me, my undergrad, I went to the University of Maryland, but my undergrad offered a scholarship to take a LSAT class at a reduced fee. And so if you can look into any of those kinds of opportunities, I know that there's like a Sidley pre-law program that sort of floats around on the internet. Looking into like those sorts of scholarships, if you can't afford to take an LSAT prep course, I think those are worth it to look into. And then I think that it really depends on what law school you go to, but I will say that at Emory, it's sort of a mix between people wanting to do well, but not wanting to do well at the expense of other people. I think that, you know, everybody is obviously like concerned with the curve. At Emory, we are centered around a B plus curve. So a third of the class gets a B plus, a third of the class gets above a B plus, and a third of the class gets below a B plus. And so I think when it comes to exams, people do have the curve in mind, but also at the same time, like, um, I know that I can go to any of my friends, any of the people in my class and ask for notes if I need them. To the point where, like, there was a day I was absent last semester and I didn't even have to ask anyone. People just emailed me their notes because they noticed that I was absent. And so I think, like, definitely at certain schools, like if you can visit to go see if they're more collegial than competitive, just to get, you know, a feel for the vibes there. Like if the vibes are off, you know, like listen to your gut. So yeah.
I
And
agree.
I think before, I'm sorry,
Oh,
Ms.
sorry.
Diaz, I think
No, go
before
ahead.
we have everybody answer, I want to keep going through the questions so that way you all don't feel, you know, all of you don't feel pressure to answer one student's question. Because time is so limited. I wish I had
Yeah.
made this longer now.
It's
Oh,
okay.
it's 1:30 already. Wow.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
I
yeah.
can actually tackle Ashley Chico's question. So I want to let you know that some of us might actually still be unsure what type of law we want to end up studying. And I know that I initially went into law school, and what I think is really exciting is that law school gives you a platform to kind of choose, you know, maybe an area that you might be interested in. And I also would recommend like joining different student organizations while you join your law school, because then, you know, it gives you the different opportunity to kind of go to different maybe student organization panels to figure out if there might be a course that you might be interested in taking second or third year. I never in a million years thought that I would be interested in criminal law, and that's what I think I'm going to end up pursuing. So by no means should you stop your, you know, law school dream if you, you know, are unsure of what type of law you might practice, because I know this summer I'm going to be working in a criminal law capacity, but you know, when I graduate, I might think to myself, all right, it's time for me to, you know, go to a law school experience, a law firm experience. So definitely don't hold off law school just because of that.
I keep seeing, so first I'll address the LSAT. If you are in a position or you can work to pay for an LSAT prep course, I would definitely advocate for taking an LSAT prep course, especially if you're someone like me that needs more structure to their schedule to make sure that you are, you know, staying on task. I would definitely advocate for a prep course. I did Test Masters. And they were really great. They broke down the reading comprehension portion, the games, and the, I don't know, the other section that we are tested on the LSAT.
Reasoning.
The best thing about the LSAT is once it's over, it's over. And once you get in, you don't, I haven't thought about the LSAT since 2000, whenever I took it. So that's the best thing about the LSAT. And I would just say you can buy exam books, previous exam books at like Barnes and Nobles or Amazon or have you, and you can probably get at least 30 previous exams. And I would definitely recommend just doing everything under a time simulation and just repetitive practice. Because that's the only way you're going to get better. And as far as law school being competitive, I don't care if you go to Harvard or if you go to Podunk University. Like, law school is hard. Law school is a different kind of rigor than your undergraduate institution or whatever you may have studied in undergrad, because everything is weighted in comparison to how your classmates doing. So you, in your mind, might think that you're doing, performing great work, and you're explaining everything to the best of your ability. However, you will learn that sometimes your answers is just not the best answer, and this person got the A because their response was just more in depth, or it was just better spoken or better said. So I would definitely just dispel any idea of law school being easy. At law school, I've cried, I've laughed, I've just taken days where I felt like I just need to lay down. You go through the entire gamut of emotions, and I would definitely, if this is something that you want to do, again, be grounded in why you're doing it and know why you want to do it, because there will come a point, at least once, that you will want to quit. And you have to, get over that and get back to what you're supposed to be doing.
All right. Myself and Dr. Smith are answering some questions in the chat as well. Another question I saw was about living on campus or off campus. Some schools, I believe, have that option, but they wanted to know what's better, which is more financially responsible, and pros and cons. So you can group all that into one.
So we have a few students that will live on-campus housing. There's a cohort of about 24 rooms that FIU has to offer. I live at home, so I feel very financially responsible in that decision. But that's not to say that, I think what happens sometimes is living on campus, you have to really evaluate what the law school does for you, because the way that we set it up at my school is the cohort of rooms, you're living with other law students. So you don't want to be stuck in an apartment with maybe a mix of students, or, that are in the undergraduate programs at the same university or anything like that. So I think it's really important to pay attention to, what kind of living facility and atmosphere that you want to create for yourself, because like we've all said, law school is not easy. There's a lot of temporary sacrifices that you're going to be making. People are going to want to hang out with you, or go out to dinner or go to a birthday party. And it's one of those things where you're going to have to say, no, I really have to focus this week on a paper that's due next week. So it really is, you want to make sure you facilitate your living facilities around the kind of atmosphere that law school is gonna call upon you.
I live, FAMU, we're in the heart of downtown, so we don't have dorms, or and our campus is actually a satellite campus. Main campus is in Tallahassee. So everyone here, our living situation, we're put in a situation where we have to live off campus. We have to look for apartment housing, either downtown or in the surrounding cities to Orlando, wherever whatever your budget may, allows for. But I love living off campus. Is it as cost effective as living on campus? Probably not. However, it isn't restricted to a 9-month limitation. At the end of May, I'm not forced to move anywhere. I control that, or my contract does. The constant moving, move in, move out. I moved in 2018. I, renewed my lease for 2 years. So I'll literally be here until the end of July 31st next year, right in time to take the bar and go on to the next thing.
So I was going to move to another student's question. The concern is the application process and LSAT prep. Although I know you touched on that, but her question was how much weight is put on outside community participation and activities versus employment history. The student doesn't have time to get involved in as many activities outside of school. So concerned about the application standing out.
Yeah, so I work in the admissions office, so like I see firsthand people looking at your applications. I think that as Samuel said, your GPA and your LSAT are really, really important, and those are the two biggest factors that will determine your acceptance and then also scholarships. I think that those are really, really important to try and get up as high as possible. If you have a low GPA, really try and counteract that with a really high LSAT score. But I will say that when people are looking at your applications, they're looking to see if you would be a good fit at the school and if you would be successful at the school. And so it is important to sort of show how you would add to the school and how you would contribute to the school's environment, to the school's, community. And so if you don't have time to get involved with extracurriculars or, internships, things like that, which I understand is like a completely valid experience for a lot of students, is that they can't afford to take an unpaid internship versus, having a part-time job. I think that's something that's important to highlight in your personal statement or in an addendum that you submit to the school, because they do read everything that you submit. And so making sure that your application is really detail oriented, making sure you don't submit, a personal statement for FAMU when you meant to send it to Emory, so making sure that you're not making little mistakes, making little grammar or spelling mistakes. And yeah.
Found a grammar mistake in one of my applications and I almost died. So, so please reread your applications, have someone proofread them. I know we can sometimes be sensitive about our own work product, but you got to get over it. We want to be attorneys, so you just got to get over it. Making sure that everything is presentable and grammatically correct. It's the first impression that you're going to make, so you want to make the best impression.
Oh, and I will add that at Emory, any interaction.
Also use.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say that any interaction that we have with the students, we put in your notes. And so even if you call, even if we send you an email, that's something that we're keeping track of. So making sure that every time you reach out to the school, you're representing yourself in the best way possible, but also not sucking up to the school, because that's sort of that puts them off you, but making sure that you're representing yourself well.
Mm-hmm. And I was just going to say that, use the personal statement really as an opportunity to shine, to stand out from everything. Not everybody is going to have the same experiences in life, and that's another thing that schools look at. I don't know how old you guys all are, but my experience is I'm what's known as a non-traditional student. I'm 31. I started law school at the age of 30. So I've been already out of college for 9 years. I was out 7 or 8 years before I even applied to law school. Within that time, I was working on a PhD in biochemistry, which I didn't finish. I was working at a technology transfer office at UM. I worked 2 years at a brand consultancy where I was naming pharmaceuticals. I was coming up with names for pharmaceuticals. So, and these things all go to work history and the experiences that you have. And that's really an opportunity that you can use to differentiate yourself from someone else. So if you don't have time for extracurriculars, you don't have time for clubs or sports, highlight the experiences that you've had at work or doing, different kinds of jobs, showing that you were a manager at a particular, at a store or a particular business, and you were in charge of, inventory and employees and doing this, I mean, that shows leadership. That shows that you have experience managing people and getting things done. I mean, these things also speak volumes to admissions committees. And these are things that you can lay out in a personal statement. I mean, my personal statements were largely about how I dropped out of the PhD because I found an interest in patent law. And I detailed my experience of what got me to there, what got me to applying to law school. So don't think that you have to fall within a certain set of parameters to even be considered a candidate for law school, because everybody's different. Everybody has different backgrounds. Just take your own life experiences, own them, highlight what's unique, what makes you stand out, what makes you different. And that's really beneficial in the long run.
I'm also a non-traditional student. I'm 32. So I can definitely attest to saying that being able to show that, in your time away from school, that you've managed, that you received a promotion or multiple promotions, or just in general that you just picked up really great skills, sales skills, leadership skills, organization skills, management skills. These are all things that will enhance your application. And in my opinion, being able to say that you were promoted is just as, after several years is just as good as saying, you made Dean's List, because the best experience is real life experience. And you being able to come to the table with a working background or, with some kind of experience, will definitely give you a different perspective, compared to the students that don't necessarily have that background. So, just highlight your strengths for sure. Can I just quickly jump in here? Someone in the chat asked if it's true whether first year they scare you to death, second year they work you to death, and third year they bore you to death. That is very true. I am ready to go. But first year was definitely a shock to the system. Second year, especially during, in the midst of this pandemic, my thought was, is this ever going to be over? And, now that my second year is over, and I'm looking towards, applying for the bar and, getting out, graduation, I can honestly say that I am ready to go. And these courses don't scare me as much as they did. And I'm really looking forward to graduation and working again.
So the first year is not easy, and I would have to compare it to kind of just like learning a new language. Julian is so right. It's just a brand new way of thinking. You're going to learn things in your law school classes that you're going to be, in your first year, you'll be driving down the road and be like, that's dangerous. That's a tort. There's some liability there. So there's like different, you're going to completely rewire the way that you think. And I get that question a lot, about, whether the first year is hard and the second year just gets easier. But I think what happens is that in the second and third year, you understand how you best study. You understand what a law school exam, what you need to do to tackle it. You understand so much more about, conceptual things in the law, or maybe what a professor is actually looking for you to analyze, because a lot of it, like we said earlier, is you're learning the law and then you're going to analyze, a potential problem that might come up, and then you come up with that solution. And so for me, I didn't necessarily find it, that they're boring me or that it gets easier or whatever it is. To me, it just got a lot more manageable because you understand, you learn so much about yourself in that first year. Because, you just learn how to work. Oh my gosh, it's so cliche, but work smarter and not harder.
And so many of these courses build on each other. You know, there's a reason that you take your, you know, they call them doctrinal courses, typically torts, criminal law, constitutional law, civil procedure, contracts, legal research and writing, property, because once you've taken those courses and you start getting into your upper level courses, you just realize, like, for example, criminal procedure is, you know, constitutional law all over again. Family law is constitutional law all over again. You know, wills and estates, you know, they're property-based courses. So everything just starts clicking, and you'll have that moment like, oh, okay, that's why we have to take these courses, you know, because it really sets the stage for, you know, going into your upper level courses. And, you know, once you've got the basics down, you know, learning and just going through the processes of everything else just seems, you know, it's a lot more manageable, definitely.
Another question I see is, how will my school load look like for a part-time law student? I don't know if you can answer it, that any of you. Will I be able to have a full-time job? One of the students I told that it's advised that they not work in the first year. I've heard that like over and over again from other panelists we've had. So they're asking about a part-time law load.
So I started at FIU as a part-time student, so I can give like a little bit of insight into that. I will say not all schools have part-time programs. So what you're going to have to do is look into, maybe do a search of law schools with part-time programs, especially in the state that you want to pursue your legal education. So not every law school is made the same. I would say if you're gonna, this is for anybody that wants to go full-time into law school, it is recommended not to work, just because you should essentially treat that, at least that first year, like a 9 to 5. This is going to be your job. Law school is going to be your job, especially in the first year. If you do want to maintain a part-time job or even a full-time job, the way that part-time programs are typically geared is so that it gives opportunity for people who are in their careers that might not want to sacrifice everything, drop out of their jobs, because they do need them to, you know, essentially live and work and put food on the table and things like that. So what they will do is be geared toward the working law student. So you will take a shorter class load. And I know specifically our program at FIU, the part-time program, is a 4-year program instead of a 3-year program. So it is possible. Many people have done it before. And that's always a big piece of advice that I give to future law students, is that people have done a lot of these things that you know, you have a goal to do and want to pursue. So if they can do it, then you absolutely can do it as well. But if you're going full-time, it should be your full-time job.
Yeah, I will also add that I was a full-time student for my first year, but I also worked part-time the second semester, just because I like needed the money. But I think that it's, if your school has it, trying to work within the school, because they will be much more understanding about your schedule. And so my second semester, I worked 10 hours a week in the admissions office. And whenever there was downtime, I could be doing my readings. I could be, you know, doing work for school. And so I think that keeping that in mind is that it's difficult. It definitely took I had to, you know, spend more time after school, really trying to like catch up with the hours that I had missed during the day. But it is possible. Not recommended, but possible.
One of the questions I see too is advice on taking a break between undergrad and law school to bolster your resume / LSAT score.
I'm an advocate for taking the break. Again, I took several years off before starting school, and I would advocate for it, especially if you're not comfortable with your GPA or your LSAT score. I would definitely advocate for taking some time off and doing something meaningful or impactful or just gathering skills, because you do want to kind of offset if your scores aren't as competitive as other students might be. So you do want to highlight that portion. And honestly, again, like, law school isn't going anywhere unless the pandemic has anything to do with it. Like, law school, it's going to be here, and you really want to make sure that you're mature enough and responsible enough to handle all that it entails, because it is a different way of life. It is, you know, for these 36 months that you're doing this thing, you know, you're not going to, you know, be able to call your family when you want to. You're not going to be able to see your family all the time when you want to. You will have to rededicate your focus. So if taking some time off to, you know, travel or work or do things that genuinely excite you and you know, make you feel whole, I would definitely advocate for those things. But if you're ready to jump in, by all means, jump in. But I would advocate for some time off.
Yeah, I took 1 year off. I was really busy in undergrad. I kind of was involved in a ton of things. So I said to myself, I don't want to sacrifice the score that I could potentially get with the way that I wanted to be involved in my last few years in undergrad. And so for me, I ended up just taking a year off to work and also study for the Lsat. I know earlier some people asked how long. I did from June to December. That was like the conclusion of the test taking that I took. So, and then I started working in January until August of when I started school. So I think maybe splitting up that year off or two that you might want to do. I also recommend it because I think you kind of grow up a little bit, and you're not necessarily jumping straight into schooling again. But that's also not to say that people, you know, a lot of students will go straight from undergrad. And you know, in reference to the application question and boosting the LSAT and everything like that, you are totally in control of essentially, if you're in this pre-law program and you're still at UCF undergrad and you're still going to be taking classes, what I would recommend is that you are totally in charge of, you know, boosting your GPA right now. You are also in charge of the practice tests that you can do right now to boost your LSAT score. So you still are in control of your GPA at this point, if you're still in undergrad. That's something that I always recommend when students come visit FIU and we talk to them in admissions and we tell them, okay, what are you in control of right now, to make you the best and most competitive applicant in that application pool. And I just want to, I guess before it ends, just like my little tiny last spiel is that I did not perform well on the LSAT. I did get into, you know, all the schools that I was pursuing, but by no means was I like in that LSAT bracket to get a full presidential scholarship or anything from my institution. So I want to say that and be super candid that just because you don't make that score or just because you don't make, you know, you have other friends that have these, you know, kick butt LSAT scores and everything like that, or you're going to look up LSAT numbers online and all this kind of stuff. And you might think to yourself, oh, I'm never going to make it into a school, or I'm not going to get a scholarship or anything like that. Like really look into, you know, maybe even partial scholarships from a school or independent scholarships that are available online. But I want to say that don't let a very average or below average LSAT discourage you, because you have to kind of do the research on the schools that you want to go to, but there are those, like, you know, bottom 25 percentile of people that do get in, that you might look at their average and say, oh my gosh, I'm 4 points away from that. But don't let that discourage you from applying, because you might be, you know, a part of an applicant pool that they want to see a diversity of people and things like that. Because you know, I got into schools regardless of my score. And you know, they want to see that different student as well. So don't let that discourage you at all, because the LSAT is really not a fun test. It's not fun to study for. I'm so glad it's over with. And I also lastly want to say that it, in my opinion, it has nothing to do with how well you're going to do in law school. Nothing, absolutely nothing. It's kind of silly. But I've performed really, really well in law school, and it's because I've, you know, asserted myself and asked questions and really honed in on all the skills that my law school has taught me. So yeah, that's my last thing.
I've gone through and we went through and answered most of the questions. Do any of you all, since you can see it as well, see anything that we might have missed before we wrap up here? I don't want to get off of here, because this is like very, the popcorn is popping, you know what I mean? So I see the engagement, but I know we have to be cognizant of everyone's time.
I do see two questions that I want to address. There was one about the LLM. You know, once you have your JD degree, or once you have your JD, that degree translates into a lot. You can do, you know, you can go into business, be an attorney, you can, you know, go into nonprofit, you can go, there are JD Advantage degrees that don't require you to have a bar, to be barred. As far as LLMs go, I would definitely advocate for, you know, doing your research. There's only one LLM that I'm aware of that is actually worth every dollar that it, you know, that it costs, and that's the tax LLM. And again, do your research. Don't take what I have to say as Bible or law. But the only LLM that is you know, that people will say is worth the money is the tax LLM, because tax law, you know, is very it just goes beyond just goes more beyond, you know, what you're going to study practically at during your law school time. So if you're thinking about an LLM, just make sure that the cost benefit is worth it. And also, as far as credit scores go, I don't know if the actual school will do a hard check on your credit score. However, to be eligible for Grad Plus loans and you know, those kinds of loans, especially if you're doing this by yourself, those entities will pull your credit score. So you want to make sure that if you're going to go to financial aid route and be able to apply for loans, that your credit score is where it needs to be to get those loans, to secure those loans.
I saw a question about organizations to get involved in undergrad. I think that for me, I really enjoyed doing mock trial. It's not going to really help you like analyze the law or anything. But I think there was also another question about like being a little shy in class. I think that getting involved in organizations like mock trial or debate, things like that will really improve your public speaking skills. And you know, not all lawyers are great public speakers, but it definitely doesn't have practice. And so getting involved with organizations like that makes you more confident. And I will say that cold calls kick everyone's butt. Like it really, like there's so many times where some people just say, no, thank you, but I'm not. Like everyone will go through that experience where like you're called on in class and you're like, wow, I read the reading, I swear I did, but I don't know what the answer is. And so that's just like a law school rite of passage. But I think that like getting involved in organizations like mock trial or debate will really help you improve your public speaking skills and make you feel more confident, and then you can fake your way through the cold call.
I'm laughing so hard because in my constitutional law class during 1L year, it was, you know, I read the case, but I didn't brief the case. Because I figured, oh, this is the last case. She's probably not even going to get to it. So when she called me, I was just like, I mean, Let's just say I just got dragged through the entire 5 minutes of, briefing, and it was painful, and it was just, but I never missed a brief from that experience. So it definitely had a good learning lesson.
I'd like to add a final note, if possible. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I feel this is something that should be elaborated on and should be said. Mostly because I remember the position that I was in after college and applying for law school, and I wish that there had been somebody there with the type of experience that I had to kind of tell me that everything's going to be all right. And I know that we often get caught up in the numbers game, having a solid GPA, a solid Lsat score. And by all means, you can get a 4.0, get that 4.0. You can get a 179 on the LSAT, get that 179. Do the best that you can in school. But just, for some of you guys, who are very small, you to know that it's not going to be the end all be all. Those numbers are not going to define you as a person. In my own personal experience and, being transparent here, I graduated from UCF with a GPA that was, let's say, slightly above a 3.0. And I got an LSAT score that was slightly below 160. And I got into every law school that I wanted to get into and every school that accepted. So don't let these numbers define you. Don't think that because you can't reach a particular threshold that you're not going to be able to go to law school or to the law school of your choice. Just cast a wide net, put yourself out there, use your life experiences. Like I said, I had an 8-year gap between undergrad and law school. And I did a bunch within that year. I grew in my mature, and I gathered a lot of life experiences. See that. I don't know about other schools, but at my law, average age of the entering first year law student is about 25 to 26, which means that a lot of students tend to be on the older end. They're not coming straight out of undergrad into law school. So don't fret so much about the numbers. Do the best that you can and use your life experiences to your advantage. Put them in that personal statement. Show these committees why you're different, why you're unique, and how you can contribute. And just know that at the end of the day, it's going to be fine. Take it from somebody who's been there. It's going to be fine. So.
And don't change your major. I just saw something.
Yeah.
Someone was saying that they're a psychology major and they're thinking of changing because they want to be more rooted in the law. You will learn everything that you need to learn about the law in law school and when you start practicing. Yeah. So please invest your time into something that you really like doing, because if you can write and research, and I'm sure that is covered in your psychology major, then you're fine.
Yeah, I get a lot of questions. Oh, sorry.
No, go right ahead.
I get a lot of questions like, what should I do before I start law school? And I wish someone would have been there to tell me, there's not much you can do to prepare. And what is really, I think, both humbling and you realize it after is that everybody's on the same boat when they're starting. Even if you have classmates that have been paralegals or have done law firm internships over, their high school or college experience, anything like that, we truly all are on the same boat. I don't think it gives many people an advantage. So I always tend to tell people, do something that you want to do, work in a job that you enjoy, or travel if you can, if all of these things go away, all these restrictions, and do stuff that makes you happy, because that first year is going to be tough and it's going to be that temporary sacrifice. And then you have, 2 or 3 more years, and then you study for the bar, and that's a whole nother animal in and of itself. So really just do something that makes you happy.
Incredible. And I'm just so glad you all left your email addresses in the chat. So this will be recorded, or is being recorded rather. So we'll be able to post that, and you all can reach out to the students on the panel, which I just think that's great that you opened that door. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you to all the